Okay, story time. So a lot of you have asked for my story about the comment I made on this other person's TikTok account about what's the spooky thing that happened to you. So, and I said this one thing that happened growing up, and everyone was like, a lot of people were like really scared, or they thought, oh, that gave me the chills. And so everyone said, we need your story. I've posted this story before on other people's posts and really didn't get any traction. I was like, oh, that's fine. It probably happens to a lot of people. So here's my story, and I'm going to try and make it as linear as possible. I apologize if I jump around a little bit. I didn't rehearse this, so here it goes. When I was, I would say, four, and by the way, I do have a photographic memory, so it's been tested. So I have a really good memory. So that's why I'm able to like recall stuff from that far away. I can recall conversations and experiences I've had from 40 years ago. I'm 45. So when I was 4 or 5, I think I'm leaning closer to 5, I had this terrible nightmare. I was in my garage and I was at the between the garage and the door to our kitchen. You walk up a couple steps, into our kitchen. And so at the other end of the garage was the garage door, and there's a bunch of junk in there because my dad was a hoarder. I saw a man or a man figure in the back of the garage, like a silhouette, not lit or anything, but I knew there was a something there, cursing at me. Not like normal curse words. It was just saying these filthy things. I knew they were filthy. I knew they were bad words I couldn't say, but I didn't understand them, and I was petrified. I couldn't move, and I was so close to getting in, but the door to the kitchen was locked, and this man was just could not stop. He was just seething mad at me, just angry, and I could feel his anger. And eventually, felt like forever, but eventually, my older sister, I got three of them, opened the door to the kitchen, and I ran inside. And the reason I know I was 5 is because I remember my sister's hair, and she kept it a certain way when she was 10ish, and she's 5 years older than me. And I told my parents about it. I couldn't sleep for a long time. And I vaguely remember a deacon from our church, grew up Catholic, a deacon coming to our house and praying over the house and sprinkling some holy water. Maybe not after that, but I remember, like peppered in throughout my childhood, I remember a deacon coming to our house doing that. And I asked my parents what that was, especially my dad. He's like, oh, they're just praying over our house. Fair enough. After that dream, I I lived in one room in my house. It was a 3 bedroom, 4 kids. Everybody shared. But after that, a bunch of my sisters moved out, got married. I moved into another room. Okay, when I want to say 10 or 11, and that room had a big closet. Big. I mean, I haven't been back, and I'm sure it's like tiny to me now. But while I was in that room for about the age 11 or 12 through 20, because I moved out. Between ages 11 to 20, I had a dream every few months of a little boy that was in my closet. He would open the closet door, and that was usually the end of the dream. Or he would open the closet door and smile, or open the closet door and say my name. A bunch of times he would open the closet door and run and jump on my bed very playfully. Like imagine you're 8 or 9 and you run and jump on someone's bed just to surprise them. That's how it was. I didn't like it. It was a little scary. I eventually told my parents about it, and I remember a deacon being at our house the next day. And I asked my dad why, and he didn't tell me why. I said, oh, don't worry about it. Sure. When I was 18, my mom got diagnosed with cancer. She died 2 years later. Me and my father and one of my sisters were like the primary caregivers. My other two sisters, they had young families. They helped out when they could. But it was mostly me and my sister, the one that rescued me from my dream, or in my dream when I was like 5. Um, so after my mom passed away, I was hanging out with my oldest sister, or one of them, and it was my oldest sister. So I remember exactly where I was. And she talked about how my mom and dad were able to afford the house we were living in growing up. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? I didn't know the story. I mean, who tells the story about that? And so my sister said, well, a kid died in our house. I was like, what? That's crazy. And I thought she was messing with me. And I never told them about my dream. I only told my parents. I didn't tell my sisters. They were moved out by the time I was like 10. Um, So I told her about the dream, and she thought I was joking. She, to this day, she probably does. If she sees this video, she probably thinks I'm making this up. But she told me that a kid committed suicide in my closet, and I thought, BS, there's no way. So she said, ask Dad. And so I asked my dad. It's like, hey, why we get the house so cheap? I mean, I don't know what cheap is. Um, I said, what are the circumstances of you guys buying the house? He said, oh, a kid. He said a kid hung himself in your closet, and that kind of gave me pause, and that freaked me out. So was I dreaming of the kid? I don't know. I think it was all demonic, but it was still like to this day, I cannot go to bed if I'm in a room with a closet, I cannot sleep if the closet door's open. And we have a couple closets in our bedroom now, and if one of them's open, I ain't falling asleep. I don't care how tired I am. When I was 20, I got into a prestigious university, and I actually became a house boy. I was living in an all-girls sorority house. It's another story. Um, it's not as glamorous as you think it was. It really wasn't. I lived with women my whole life. It's not a huge deal, and no, nothing happened. Um, so during the summer, they let me live there for free. In fact, I lived there for free the whole time. So I washed dishes, and I cooked once a week on Sundays for the girls that were there on Sundays. Well, during the summer, I would hear a lot of noises, steps going up and down the stairs, or people running up and down the stairs. Which I thought nothing of. We were so close to another house, I thought, well, maybe it's just that. But lights would turn on in the middle of the night. And the only reason I know that is because I worked graveyards for the police on campus. And I would be like, I was just there. Why was that light on in that one room or whatever? And it wasn't a single room, it was certain rooms. I dismissed it. And then one night I was walking through the foyer. Such a bougie sentence. I was walking through the foyer, and I heard a growl at me, like a roaring growl. And it terrified me so much. I dropped everything. I drove home. I wasn't that far from home. My dad, who was he was a minister at the time. He was retired and working as a minister, and he told me some prayers to pray, and to get rid of it. And then as I was leaving, because I was really shooken up, as I was leaving, my dad said, you know, if we're really dealing with something demonic, and they know you could get rid of them, it's going to get a lot worse. Why don't you just live here during the summer? I really didn't want to, for other reasons I won't get into. I was like, no, I'll take my chances. I drive home, and all the gauges in my car start going haywire. Gas, oil, going back and forth. I call my dad, and he prays over the phone with me, and everything goes back to normal. And my dad again says, you need to come back. Just come back home. He was remarried. I didn't want to deal with just the whole, everything that was involved with that. I had my own place. And so I went back to the sorority house. And one of the closets, I was just checking out. I mean, I was there alone for the whole summer. I would look in the closets. Most of it was like empty. Most of the time I was just looking for food. One of the closets had 4 or 5 Ouija boards that were extremely well used. I didn't touch them. The boards were like broken. You know, they were just cracked. It looked like people had been playing with them for years. And that kind of scared me. Another time when I was there, I had friends over as much as I can. One time I had some friends over, and we were watching TV in the TV room, and this happened, and I didn't recognize it. My dad said, if you see things, if things are scaring you, don't recognize it, don't acknowledge it. But my name was whispered multiple times when people were there, and those people left pretty quickly. I would smell like rotting meat once in a while, and it culminated finally in me when I was sleeping. I would hear people running up and down the stairs where I lived and walking and banging on my door, until one night I was thrown out of my bed, and I woke and I had scratches all over my body. That's when I stopped living there, and I moved to my girlfriend's house, which lived pretty close to home. So there's other stuff that happened. I'm sure you may or may not believe me. I'm not lying. Why would I? But that's pretty much the story. I'm sure I'm leaving out the vast majority of stuff, but that's just working from memory. Other things have happened since then. Like I said, I think it was demonic, and I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and I take power over even this video. I'm reticent to even post it, but anyways, I hope that answered the question. There's more. If you want more, I'll send it, but I don't see a lot of people wanting to hear the story. Anyways, have a great day. God bless.